We the people want answers. We the people are sick of this shit.
My videos don't necessarily promote one religion. My views and opinions aren't meant to change the minds, opinions, or beliefs of others. Watch with an open mind. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, entertainment, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All rights and credit go directly to its rightful owners. No copyright infringement is intended. We continue to uncover the profound wisdom within the timeless scriptures. Take care, and God bless.
Welcome back to my channel. In Part 6 of our series on the Constitution, we'll look at Article 6 and Article 7, which are the last two articles of the Constitution itself, and then we'll also look at the first 4 amendments to the Constitution, which became known as the Bill of Rights. Let's get started. Article 6. All debts incurred and obligations entered into prior to the adoption of this Constitution shall remain as valid against the United States under this Constitution as they were under the Confederation. And no state without the consent of the United States in Congress assembled shall send any embassy to, or receive any embassy from, or enter into any conference, agreement, alliance, or treaty with any king, prince, or state. This Constitution, along with the laws of the United States made in accordance with it, and all treaties made or to be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. And judges in every state shall be bound by them, notwithstanding anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary. The senators and representatives, previously mentioned members of the various state legislatures, and all executive and judicial officers of both the United States and the states shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and to preserve, protect, and defend it against all enemies, foreign and domestic. But no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification for any office or public trust under the United States. As we read through Article 6, we see that there are 3 main parts to it. First, it deals with existing contracts and debts. Then second, it talks about a state's ability to enter into agreements with other nations. And third, it discusses how federal law is the supreme law of the land. Now let's look at each of these sections in detail. First, this section says that all debts and obligations that were incurred before the Constitution went into effect would still be binding after the Constitution went into effect. So if someone had a debt or obligation to pay before the Constitution went into effect, like maybe you borrowed money from your neighbor before the Constitution went into effect, you would still have to pay that money back even after the Constitution went into effect because your contract would still be valid. And that's what this part of Article 6 is saying. Then second, this section tells the states that they can't just go off on their own and do things. It says that no state without the consent of the United States in Congress assembled shall send any embassy to or receive any embassy from or enter into any conference, agreement, alliance, or treaty with any king, prince, or state. Now, why did the framers put this in the Constitution? Well, remember that when the Constitution was written, the United States had just declared independence from Britain, and the new nation was still very fragile. The 13 individual states that made up the United States were very powerful, and some people at the time were worried that the central government wouldn't be strong enough and that the states would become too powerful. So to prevent the states from becoming too powerful, the framers put this provision in the Constitution to limit the states' power to deal with other nations. And finally, the third part of Article 6 says that the Constitution and laws made by the federal Congress are the supreme law of the land. It says that this Constitution, along with the laws of the United States, made in accordance with it, and all treaties made or to be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. Now again, remember that the framers wanted to create a strong national government, but at the same time, they didn't want the federal government to become too powerful. So they didn't want to say that federal law is always supreme over state law, because then the states would have no power at all. So instead, the framers chose to allow state law to stand if it agreed with the Constitution and federal law. But if there was a conflict between the two, then federal law would win out because the framers believed that since the Constitution was the supreme law of the land, then any law that conflicted with the Constitution would be unconstitutional and therefore invalid. And that's exactly what this part of Article 6 says. It says that judges in every state shall be bound by the Constitution and laws of the United States, notwithstanding anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary. So this part of Article 6 established the concept of federal preemption, which allows federal law to supersede state law when the two conflict with each other. Now, the last part of Article 6 says that all members of Congress, all state legislators, and all officers of the federal government and state governments must swear an oath to uphold the Constitution. It says the senators and representatives, previously mentioned members of the various state legislatures, and all executive and judicial officers of both the United States and the states shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and to preserve, protect, and defend it against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And this is important because it shows that everyone who works in government from the highest levels to the lowest levels is expected to uphold the Constitution. And also notice that it says that the oath or affirmation must be to support the Constitution and the laws of the United States. It does not say that the oath must be to a particular political party or a particular president or governor. And although this part of Article 6 doesn't require that the oath include any particular wording, the 12th section of the first article, which outlines the requirements to become a member of Congress, does require that the oath include the following language. It says that before he or she can take his or her seat, each member of the House of Representatives and senator shall take an oath or affirmation to support the Constitution of the United States. However, this part of the Constitution does not require that any religious test be included in the oath. It says that no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification for any office or public trust under the United States. Now we come to Article 7, which says that once 9 states ratified the Constitution, then the Constitution would become law. It says the ratification by the conventions of 9 states shall be sufficient to establish this Constitution among the states that ratify it. And the last part of Article 7 is where the delegates signed their names to show their support for the Constitution. It says, done in convention by the unanimous consent of the states present on the 17th day of September, in the year of our Lord 1787, and of the independence of the United States of America the 12th. In witness whereof we have hereunto subscribed our names. Now let's look at the list of the people who signed the Constitution. First, we have the name of the President of the Constitutional Convention, G. Washington, who was also a delegate from Virginia. Then we have the delegates from New Hampshire, John Langdon and Nicholas Gilman. From Massachusetts, we have Nathaniel Gorham and Rufus King. From Connecticut, we have William Samuel Johnson and Roger Sherman. From New York, we have Alexander Hamilton. From New Jersey, we have William Livingston, David Brearley, William Patterson, and Jonathan Dayton. From Pennsylvania, we have Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Mifflin, Robert Morris, George Clymer, Thomas Fitzsimmons, Jared Ingersoll, and James Wilson, and Gouverneur Morris. From Delaware, we have George Reed, Gunning Bedford Jr., John Dickinson, Richard Bassett, and Jacob Broome. From Maryland, we have James McHenry, Daniel of St. Thomas Jennifer, and Daniel Carroll. From Virginia, we have John Blair and James Madison, Jr. From North Carolina, we have William Blount, Richard Dobbs Speight, and Hugh Williamson. From South Carolina, we have John Rutledge, Charles Cotesworth Pinckney, Charles Pinckney, and Pierce Butler. And from Georgia, we have William Few and Abraham Baldwin. And now we come to the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution, and it guarantees certain individual liberties and rights. Remember that when the Constitution was being debated, many people were concerned that the national government would become too powerful and that the central government might use that power to try to control people's lives, and that the central government might infringe upon the basic liberties of the American people. So to help ease these fears, the framers promised to add the Bill of Rights to the Constitution once it was ratified. And then in 1791, the first 10 amendments were added to the U.S. Constitution and became the Bill of Rights. Let's quickly look at the first 4 amendments. First Amendment: Congress shall make or enforce any law establishing a religion or prohibiting its free exercise, nor shall it restrict the freedom of speech or the press or the right of the people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government to address grievances. This amendment guarantees several basic freedoms. It prohibits the government from establishing a state religion. It also prohibits the government from interfering with the free exercise of religion. And then it protects freedom of speech, press, assembly, and the right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Second Amendment: A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be violated. This amendment guarantees the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Third Amendment: No soldier shall be housed in any private residence during peacetime without the owner's consent, nor in wartime except as prescribed by law. This amendment prohibits soldiers from being quartered in private homes. Fourth Amendment: The right of individuals to be secure in their persons' homes. Papers and belongings against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be infringed, and no warrants shall be issued without probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and specifically describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. This amendment guarantees the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures, and it requires warrants to be based on probable cause and to specifically describe the place to be searched and the items to be seized. And that brings us to the end of Part 6 of our series on the Constitution. Next time, we'll look at the remaining 9 amendments in the Bill of Rights, and we'll also look at how the Bill of Rights applies to the states and local governments. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel.
Thank you all for watching this here video.